So is Battlefield back with Battlefield 2042 Update 3.2? We've had our hands on the latest update for Battlefield 2042 for about a week now, so I figure it's about as good a time as any to delve into this topic a bit and share my experiences with the reworks and the game's overall feel now. As with most major overhauls of the game, it really seems like Update 3.2 has split the community on what's good and what's bad within it. I've seen a ton of mixed reviews and comments about the game, primarily on Twitter, with people either praising it or saying that the game still needs a massive amount of work. I really haven't noticed just a ton of people completely flip their opinion of the game after the long-awaited return of the class system, but there have been a few. For the most part, folks that didn't like the game before still don't like it now, and folks who are a little more easygoing and less nitpicky, well, they're still fine with it. As expected, the split tends to lie along the casual and quote-unquote sweat line, where skill level and attention to detail really tend to be deciding factors on what's acceptable and what isn't. But anyway, let's dive into some of the changes and things I can think of that are new with Update 3.2. Before I do that, if you guys dig these long-form scripted videos from me, be sure to press like and subscribe to the channel. I'm working on getting this channel to that 1,000 subscriber mark, and your interactions will help signal to me that this is more of what I should include on here. Alright, let's jump into some Update 3.2 stuff now. Let's start with the new class system. For those unaware, Battlefield 2042 has finally made a return to the class system reminiscent of what we had in previous Battlefield titles. Well, sort of. It's sort of a weird retcon way to go about it, but that's about the only way to do it with this game, seeing as it was originally meant to be a hero BR shooter that pivoted back to a typical Battlefield sandbox shooter with more freedom to now being a Battlefield sandbox shooter with classic classes. That's way too many format changes for one title. Ideally, you have none, but it is what it is. I really pray that the next Battlefield just starts with the Battlefield DNA from the get, and we don't do all this wishy-washy back and forth BS like we have with 2042. All that being said, I think the classes have been a positive change to the game. Some aspects of freedom were obviously removed, which has been a noticeable downgrade for some folks. For example, King Zook, who was a wingsuit M35 master before the changes. But overall, the changes have brought some more readability to the game and altered the flow ever so slightly. I fully expected to see many more engineers running around after the changes, simply for access to shoulder-mounted launchers, but I've seen surprisingly few. I anecdotally also feel I receive fewer revives than before Update 3.2, but I hear others having opposite reports. It probably more so depends on team composition on a match-by-match basis. Things that haven't changed, though, is that ammo can be fairly hard to come by still, which causes me to run an ammo box to ensure I have plenty when I need it. Let's shift gears a bit and talk about the latest map rework for Battlefield 2042, Breakaway. I think DICE did a pretty decent job of reworking this map. To me, it looks more like a Battlefield map now. There's more detail all around, and things flow much better on it with the new layout. If you guys know me, you know I primarily play Breakthrough, so I can't speak too much about Conquest at all, but I, for the most part, dig the map each time I play it. There have been a handful of times that I land in a team that simply fails to take the first sector, but that doesn't come down to the map design. That's more thanks to the insufferable blight that is people failing to move up and capture points, which strikes at random depending on who has populated the server. There are some weird moments where DICE has given into that itch to provide some pretty nutty verticality. I'm looking at you, Sector 2. But overall, I can have some decent rounds on the new Breakaway, which is a net win in my book. Out of the reworks, this could be the best one. It certainly exceeds what they put out for the Manifest rework, which still plays like absolute garbage in my opinion. Now we just have to wait and see if they can salvage anything out of Discarded and Hourglass. Discarded, maybe. Hourglass, I have my doubts that map is savable. So, shifting topics again, let's talk about the balance in the game post-Update 3.2. There's obviously a lot to discuss balance-wise. A whole separate video could be made discussing different balancing points within this game, so I'll try to keep it brief here and more to what I have experience with. That being said, I think the weapon balance in the game is not in a good place right now, and several bugs are the primary driver for why this is the case. With Update 3.2, there have been a lot of delays introduced to the handling of weapons, which makes selecting an SMG about the best choice right now for aggressive infantry play. ARs, which used to be a viable choice obviously, are now not due to a sprint to fire bug introduced with Update 3.2. Basically, DICE doesn't test their game, and there can be a whopping 400 plus millisecond delay before you can fire an AR coming out of attack or traversal sprint, as DICE calls it. This is simply far too much and makes ARs really clunky and annoying to use currently. Add to this the fact that DICE also added some insanely long ADS times to barrel mags, which everyone runs, and you have a wholly very irritating AR experience. Fortunately, DICE devs have confirmed that the sprint-to-fire delays are a bug and are longer than intended, and they are also walking back the barrel mag ADS delays. This should make ARs more playable if they can get it fixed in the next update. However, do expect more barrel mag nerfs in the future because devs have already stated that they want to mitigate their large usage somehow, but basically don't know how yet. In fact, they weren't even sure if increasing ADS time was the direction they wanted to go, but did it anyway, which is just dumb. Hey, don't release it to the public if you have no clue yet, you know? So yeah, all that to say, basically SMGs are the way to go right now. Especially with the previous patch 3.1.2's vertical recoil reduction in place, SMGs can do the job that ARs were doing for the time being. Speaking of the recoil reduction, that was done not really as a recoil reduction measure, but was more a result of fixing the recoil bug found by community member Baranox before the end of 2022. That change did a lot to help the feel of aiming and mouse input in this game, and DICE did even more to help input in this latest update, but I can't help but feel like aiming in this game is still sort of wacky. It just doesn't feel quite right yet. So for those hoping that 3.2 helped that issue, I'm sorry to say, I still don't feel like it's 100% fixed. I was saying this before, and I still feel this way now. I don't think it ever will be. Okay, I need to quickly discuss vehicles after 3.2. I can't talk too much about vehicle balance because I'm not a vehicle player, so I'm not quite as sure how those guys are feeling at the moment. I do know that there are still a ton of changes that need to be made to vehicles to really make them fit their specific roles and balance them to infantry a bit better. Right now, List rockets, especially with their range and maneuverability buffs in 3.2, have the ability to completely decimate things if multiple people select her and choose to do so. There are community members who have made some very nice suggestions on Twitter that I'm hoping DICE will look at and consider when it comes time to really get in there and make vehicles fit the best way they can in this title. Well, alright. So far I've talked about the introduction of classes to Battlefield 2042, the Breakaway rework, how I feel the gun balance is currently, and the current state of the mouse input, as well as a bit about vehicle balance. So where does that leave us? I'm thinking it's about time to wrap things up. I have no doubt that I missed something major in this video, but these are the key things I've noticed with 3.2. My first few days with the update, I was really struggling in-game to have any good rounds, and I was about ready to write this update off as a bust. However, after spending some time with it and learning how to work around the glaring issues, I began to play a bit better and have a bit better time with it. Oh, and big thing I forgot to mention, config files are working now. I'll add that here because it's important to note. Just being able to increase my frames over 100 FPS with the config does help the game feel a lot better. If DICE can get in there and properly revert all the weird delays and issues with slowing the game down, I think we're finally on the road to getting the game feeling a little bit more readable and serviceable. Only time will tell. Anyways, that will about do it for this one. What do you guys think about Update 3.2? Are classes what you expected? Have they helped the game improve in your eyes? Let me know in the comments below, and I hope to see you back for the next video. Until then, best of luck out there on the battlefield.